It is Friday, March 7th, and welcome back to Damon Bruce Plus, brought to you by Ike Sandwiches. This dude right here has got a sandwich with your name on it. Well, it's actually a sandwich with my name on it. But you can go get a sandwich with a lot of different names on them at Ike's. We'll talk more about that in a minute. It is great to have you here. Thank you for stopping on by. Like and subscribe, and we're hopping right in with the very latest on Brock Purdy's contract negotiation, which I understand it makes everybody start wringing their hands. And everybody gets all emotional about Brock. And I saw that Mike Silver has a very pointed, it's the most ruthless Jed York has ever been when it comes to contract negotiation story out there in The Athletic right now. Very interesting story, too, by the way. Mike is no just simple, useful idiot. He is not the type of person who is bringing the team's saber rattling to the public place just because, they want to set everybody up for all the big decisions that they're about to make. I do think that the 49ers do need to make people a little less comfortable. They need to be a little bit more financially prudent with all the money paid out in terms of actual cash to last year's team, which was obviously a big disappointment. A little bit more illuminating on why that was such a big disappointment, I think, coming up around the corner as well. But look, Brock Purdy's deal shouldn't be that hard. It really shouldn't be. There are two different ways that the 49ers can actually play this. They can play out we're going to give you a longer than we're comfortable with contract, but that is going to make your deal a lot easier to negotiate, move money around. And at the end of it, my God, the number that looks like it gives you great sticker shock today will be seen as a huge value. The number that you think, well, you can't pay him that. 5 years from now, it's going to be a bargain. There's no doubt. So locking in quarterbacking price points as the price of quarterbacking explodes, as the salary cap explodes, and it's going to keep on exploding with all of these teams now allowed to do these 10% sell-offs to, private capital firms. There's a lot of money that's going to be thrown into the NFL, who gets paid what equation. So lock in your numbers now. It's the smart thing to do. We have seen the 49ers publicly tell everybody they put $45 million on the table for Brock Purdy. So by doing that, what they're reasonably saying is we expect him to come back asking for at least $10 million more than that. So if we say 45 and you say 55, then meeting right in the middle at 50 doesn't sound that far-fetched. And I really don't think it should. I don't think that is a number that the 49ers should hesitate to give. I also don't think it's a number that Team Brock should be that angry at receiving. Based on who he is, based on what he's done, he's been very, very impressive. But when we really start measuring him against some of the other quarterback contracts out there, the argument isn't those guys are worth it as much as the teams that made those paychecks just don't know what they're doing. Dak Prescott worth $65 million a year. Does that happen if the Cowboys are a better run team? Do the 49ers need to operate at other teams' bad price points? There's an argument there, right? Let's talk about a full-bore 5-year deal without many bells or whistles really attached to it. Again, it would allow the 49ers to spread money around that contract to fluctuate, bigger year, lesser paid year throughout it. It would give the Niners, I think, the most roster flexibility. And again, if they bet correctly on Brock in year 2 or 3 of this 5-year deal, the Niners do go to and win a World Series. It's going to be one of the best deals in sports if they've locked all those numbers in. Now, if Brock were to take this deal, fall flat on his face, a 5-year deal probably isn't what you want to be in. So the other element of this is a 3-year deal, where you get all sorts of guaranteed money just right up front. It's going to cost the Niners a lot more now than it would later. Big upfront cash, but it would be easier to walk away from in 2028 if things had not gone according to plan. And let's face it, if things have not gone according to plan by 2028, it's probably not only time to change the plan, but the guys who actually make the plan. So it feels like, this would be a deal that gives everybody like, hey, if you're going to do something, you needed like a 3-year window to do it in. And in that window, there could be some unreal performance bonuses. What is the most amount of money ever guaranteed as a performance bonus for you or the starting quarterback of a winning Super Bowl team? Double that number. Do you think that the 49ers would have any trouble paying Brock Purdy a $5 million you just won the Super Bowl bonus? I mean, I wouldn't. I do think that the Max Crosby contract that we just seen give to an edge rusher is just a little bit of a template here. Again, Crosby's got a $106.5 million deal with 91 guaranteed. So 3 years at 50 bumps this to $150 for Brock with about $100 million in guaranteed. Bonuses could push it out to 160, 170. This is reasonable to me. Or do you really want to get into the $200 million 5-year deal, which, again, at the end of it could prove great value? It also exposes the Niners to as much risk as it does roster flexibility. I don't think it should be that hard. I don't think there should be an ungodly amount of hand-wringing and worrying about this. It's every single quarterback in this league in the next 6 or 7 years is going to be a $50 million position. All starting quarterbacks are going to be making, about 50-ish, even the bad ones. It's just the price that's going up. So I wouldn't be that intimidated by it. And again, if Jed York is really like, Jed's on the warpath, Jed says there's a new way of doing business, Jed is going to be more ruthless than ever. Well, if that's what you're going to be, there's another avenue available to you. That is Brock playing out his last year for about 5.1.2 million, whatever it is. Brock, you make $5 million this year, and then the year after that, we're going to franchise tag you. And then maybe a year after that, we franchise tag you again. That's an expensive upfront way of doing business, but it obviously lets you walk away at the end of said year. I think they believe in Brock a little bit more to do that. But if Jed really wants to play the let me show you what hardball looks like with Team Purdy, he could do that too. So let's see what hardball really even means, according to this Mike Silver article coming out today in The Athletic. Kind of interesting. The sip of the day, off the board. That happened when Larry and I were doing Wake Up earlier today, a spicy wake up between yours truly and Kruger today. It was a good one. I hope you check it out. Please like and subscribe to all we're doing over here. Thank you so much for liking and subscribing. It is going up, up, up in terms of subscribers and views this past week with the Warriors coming back to life, with all this football news. Pretty good traction on the channel this week after a little bit of a dip in the month of February, which is always to be expected. But it's great to have you back here. And as always, it's great to be going to war with this guy having my back all the time, because every army marches on the strength of its own stomach. And there's nobody filling stomachs quite like our guy Ike. Go ahead and get yourself a Damon Bruce when you're ordering Ike's. There I am. Look at me as a sandwich. Aren't I beautiful? Would I go Dutch Crunch? No, I wouldn't. I don't like tearing up the roof of my mouth. I like it on a soft roll. Everything else, though, looks good to me. I'd even say no tomatoes on. I'm not a big tomato guy in a sandwich. I like tomatoes, just not on a sandwich. I don't like a wet sandwich. I'm going onions, red onions, baby. Make that happen. Get yourself to Ike's. If you're ordering for your office, check out Ike's Catering. You'll be very, very happy that you did. Also, get yourself to the Dubliner West Portal. Oh, the official bar on the south side of San Francisco at the Damon Bruce Show. Love the guys at the Dubliner. My friends, Kenny and John are just fantastic. They're ready to pour you the best Guinness in the entire city. They're ready to take care of you. You are ready to sit down and enjoy great company, cozy neighborhood bar, well lit, well appointed. And oh my goodness, I can bring any food that I want in here. That's kosher. The music's kosher. The TVs for sports are kosher without being an obnoxious sports bar. The Dubliner West Portal, check it out. Don't take my word for it. Find out for yourself why it's one of the greats. Thank you very much to everyone who is up here and watching. Obviously, visions of Joey Bosa are kind of dancing in 49ers fans' heads. I talked about this yesterday with our friend Sam Batesh, and I will just want to say it again. Joey Bosa under the circumstances that he has, is a let's not go there, I think, negotiation for the 49ers. The guy is certainly older. He's missed 23 games over the last 3 seasons. He hasn't seen double-digit sacks since 2001. Bringing in Khalil Mack, which was supposed to spring him into more production, more availability, fewer double teams, therefore more production, really didn't happen. So this one is completely up to La Familia Bosa to get done if he wants to be a San Francisco 49er. To me, the 49ers shouldn't negotiate with Joey Bosa at all. The negotiation needs to be Joey Bosa walking in, hat in hand, saying, I want to play with my brother so bad and for a contender, and you're the only team in football that can offer me both of those things. Could I make the most amount of money somewhere else? Sure. But will that be with a contender, and will it be with your brother? That's a maybe and an absolutely not. There's only one place where he can play with his brother, and it's the San Francisco 49ers. And to become a San Francisco 49er, it is Joey Bosa's responsibility to walk in and say, what do I need you? What do I need to do to put you in Joey Bosa today? In other words, he's got to bring them a price point and an offer that they can't say no to, even with all the risk attached to him. Can't say no to that. To me, Joey Bosa walks in saying, like, yeah, I'm willing to come play for you. 2 years, $16 million, 9 guaranteed. I mean, that's like cutting his price point of last year with the Chargers like into a third. The union wouldn't be happy with that. His argument to the union would be, yeah, I wanted to play with my brother. My brother and I weren't able to play together at Ohio State. My brother and I haven't played on the same team together at the same time since we were in high school. This means more to me than any dollar amount anywhere else. We'll see. We'll see. I don't know if Joey and a team that is always look to ring the financial bell the loudest and hardest, and I mean Team Bosa. The Bosas leave not a penny on the plate for anybody else when they go in to negotiate. But would you do the same for your brother? That changes things a little. It would be great copy. It would be an interesting story to track. It would be all sorts of the 49ers can really turn around and sell you how much of a family business it is when there's family playing together. It would be a great story. Would it be great production? Would it be an automatic ticket right back to the postseason? The answer is no. We don't know. If the price were perfect, you open the door if Joey knocks on it. Anything less than a perfect price point, the door stays shut. And that's the way I think it goes. That's, again, a lot of people want to tell you all this stuff is so very, very hard. I think that some of this should be a lot easier than they're making it out to be. I really do. Jon Snow, a 40-year-old Trent is better than 90% of left tackles starting. I agree with you there. I agree with you. But he's got to be 40 and healthy. Again, if Trent is playing in the game, he's one of the best tackles in the game until otherwise. Again, that statement won't be a statement you can make in perpetuity, but right now, if he's out there and playing, and every team in the league is out there and playing, there aren't 5 offensive linemen in this league who are better than him. Like everyone, the edge of that cliff is coming on faster and faster and faster that you fall off of. But in the meantime, John, you are right. He's still the man. He is still the man. And if he's a healthy player next year, and health has an awful lot to do with, I think, the season that we just looked at, even though Larry argued in circles that it doesn't. Again, I'm not sharing an opinion here. I'm just going to share some statistics. You tell me what you make of these statistics. Because I saw this from Nicholas McGee of Niners Nation, who said that he was looking at AGL, The stat that is AGL is adjusted games lost. He looked at all adjusted games lost data for every team in football. And the Niners, when it comes to adjusted game lost data, were the most injured team in the NFL last year. Their adjusted game loss score of 141.2 qualified for 32nd in all of football, and there are only 32 teams. How is that number reached? I don't know. I don't have the formula in front of me, and I was so bad at math, even if I did, I'd probably have trouble explaining it to you. But basically, it goes like this. If your starter is injured in week 15, it means less than if a starter was injured in week 2. So again, to lose a player for a couple of weeks means more than losing a player for a whole bunch. Losing a starter in any position means more than an injury to a rotational defensive line player, a slot corner that's coming on and off the field, a backup offensive lineman. Those injuries aren't nearly as game-changing, game-affecting as you're losing starters. The 49ers, particularly at the position of running back, finished with the second worst adjusted games lost score of all time. Christian McCaffrey missed most of the season. Jordan Mason, Isaac Orendo, both were hurt for significant chunks. Elijah Mitchell, we didn't even see him. So Larry rejected that just getting healthier makes the Niners better. Like, he tried to interpret that as, I'm just saying, run it all back. There's nothing else to worry about. No, you need to run it back, but you need to stay healthy with a good free agency and a good draft class buoying all these decisions. But man, to me, to dismiss the amount of injuries as to a part of the reason why the Niners were bad, or to dismiss the fact that guys getting healthier will be a big reason why this year turns around, I just think it's crazy. And I'm no 49er fanboy. I don't root for the 49ers. I cover them. And I'll tell you right now, this coaching staff, which I believe in more than most, with a quarterback that I believe in more than most, with a team that I think is going to be healthier just because it ain't last year anymore. You're healthier this year. That's starting, and things can change there quickly. Obviously, it's a collision sport. Things change fast. Last place schedule, a special teams that is not sabotaging your own chances to win by the fucking game. Plus, Robert Saleh's trusted voice is back in the room. I'm going to tell you right now, I think the 49ers are a playoff team next year. I haven't seen who they drafted. I haven't seen who they've added. But coming back as is with those circumstances, better special teams, Robert Saleh, I like your chances to be a playoff team again next year. I do. A lot. You want to say that's wishful thinking? I mean, go ahead. Go. I don't care. I think this stuff matters. I think this stuff matters greatly. The Niners really banged up against the first place schedule. Sounds like a disaster. Easy to come out of the oven. Like, it's done. There you go. You've baked yourself your own disaster. Any element of middle of the pack health against the last place schedule, I think makes them better. Do you need a better offensive line, defensive line, secondary linebackers, all that stuff, better wide receivers? Yes, you do. But man, I think the games lost last year went a long way to explaining what last year looked like. What drives me nuts are when people try to look at the Niners and say that there is a degree of neglect or incompetence that is going into why they've been performing poorly last year. Now, you want to say bad draft choices. Finally, that bill came to the table and you miss all those first, second, and third rounders for all those years, and the Trey Lance trade, which was a disaster. That's all real. That's all a part of it for sure. But there are good teams that have bad drafts all the time. I mean, nothing is guaranteed. Howie Roseman's really good at it. The Eagles are absolutely a candidate to have a bad draft this upcoming draft, right? They are. You never know what you're getting until you bite into the chocolate. And then you know what's inside of it. You can make your best guess, and it feels like there are teams that are better at making their best guess as to who would be a significant NFL player than others, but it can even go wrong for them too. And then you can have teams that are bona fide disasters have lightning strike every now and then. When the Cleveland Browns drafted Myles Garrett, they had a real one immediately. And they knew it, and the league knew it, and this guy's been wrecking shop since he's come into football. There are a few guys that get to walk down quarters. Well, I have to turn the space heater off here. All of a sudden, it got really warm in this room. There are certain guys who are allowed to walk down quarters of the facility that not everybody gets to walk down. And Myles Garrett is a guy that should have a full access pass, right? He can go anywhere. He can have a meeting with anybody, including the owner of the football team. Well, in a huge sign of disrespect, Myles Garrett wanted to speak directly to the Cleveland Browns about his situation, and NFL Network reports that Jimmy Haslam, the owner of the Browns, declined that meeting with Myles Garrett and said, "You go talk to Andrew Berry, who is the general manager." How disrespectful is that? If there were anything that might have put Humpty Dumpty back together again in that meeting between Haslam and Garrett, Haslam will never find out because he wouldn't even take the meeting, that dickhead. There are a few guys. Look, the starting guard wants to talk to the owner. Well, he doesn't get the meeting. He doesn't get to walk down every quarter in the facility, but he's not Myles Garrett. I mean, what could be a more clear sign of negligent ownership than the owner who can't be bothered talking to his best player? That's all you need to know about. That's all you need to know about the Browns. This development comes with both sides digging further into their stances that Myles Garrett wants out. He does not want to restructure. The Browns are saying, well, tough. We don't want to trade you. We're not going to. Something's going to come to a head here. Something's going to come to a head. And I think Myles Garrett is going to get what he wanted, because Myles Garrett is a more significant NFL entity than the entirety of the Cleveland Browns, if we're being totally honest. It's amazing how bad football teams that are pro NFL teams in the state of Ohio are. And I guess that brings us to the Bengals, who are now officially throwing in the towel on Trey Hendrickson. The guy's got more sacks over 3 years than anybody else. And if you think that there's any coincidence at all that the Bengals are walking away from Trey Hendrickson now that Max Crosby reset the market, you haven't been paying attention. What happened was Max Crosby's deal makes what Trey Hendrickson was asking for even more reasonable. And the Browns still won't come back to him. The Bengals have repeatedly said that they hope to sign defensive end Trey Hendrickson to a long-term deal. On Thursday, the notorious frugal franchise threw in the paper towel, allowing Hendrickson to seek a trade. It might not be that the Crosby deal made Hendrickson want more. It could be that the Crosby contract made Hendrickson's prior position, which the Bengals scoffed at, even more reasonable. In other words, you should have sprinkled a little bit more on top of that opening deal you said no to. You should have said yes to it, because the price goes up. The price only goes up the longer you wait to sign players to extensions. It doesn't go down. It only goes up. Which brings us back to the Brock Purdy. Like, if Brock Purdy really is going to turn into an all that in a bag of chips, awesome quarterback, give him that 5-6 year deal right now, and by year 5 or 6, that price point is going to look like a Honda Civic. No big whoop. No big whoop. Trey Hendrickson had 35 sacks over the last 2 years. Max Crosby has had 34.5 sacks over the last 3. Hendrickson so outpaces Crosby's production in less of a year that the fact he's only going to make $16 million while you now have a $30 million a year defensive end. Dude, Bengals, What can't you fuck up? This is a team that's been trying to evaluate who T. Higgins is for the better part of 5 years, and they still have no idea. That's why they're franchise tagging him again. How can you have not made a decision on a guy that is around you every day? You know who he is, you know how he acts, you know what his moral compass is set to. Like, you've gotten to know this guy. He's never played for anybody but you. And then when you look at him, you still don't even know what you're looking at? Like, know when to walk away, know when to run, or know when to actually get married. Again, I know what incompetent and bad teams look like all the time. And the Niners, even in bad seasons, even in fans are angry years, they're not this level of incompetent. Like, let's say there was acrimony between Nick Bosa and the Niners' nameless, faceless brass. And Nick Bosa asked to see Jed York. Don't you think Jed York's going to have that meeting? Like, do you think Jed York's going to be like, nah, man, I'm not taking that meeting? No, I don't believe that at all. You got to be some supremely confident dickhead to tell your best player who's angry at the franchise, I won't even take a meeting with him. But you expect him to find his way back to you? I mean, it's just so stupid. It is so stupid. Anyway, next week. I hope you've liked and subscribed, because next week's going to be a fascinating week on the channel. We are going to start the You Can Talk to Dudes period in free agency on Monday. By Wednesday, free agency will open, and we are going to see the names and numbers start flying around in the first 3 days of next week. It is going to be so much fun. So please like and subscribe and get ready for what should be a very fun week for the NFL. It's going to be an awful lot of fun, and we will start getting a clearer picture as to what all these teams look like. Let's see what else we got going on here today. We got the Warriors coming home for a 3-game upcoming homestand after rolling back into town with a 4-1 5-game East Coast road trip underneath their belts. 19 games left in the year. The Pistons on Saturday, Portland on Monday, the Kings on Thursday. All of those games are at Chase Center. And the Warriors, if it all ended today, are the 6th seed right now. They're not in that play-in tournament. They're 3 games back of the Rockets for the 5 seed. That might be a little tough to reach. So the mission is to not get caught by Minnesota or the Clippers. Right now, the Warriors are a half game up on the T-Wolves for the 6th seed, 1.5 games up on the Clippers for the 7. You want to stay out of that 6 through 10. You don't want to go to that burn some of your gas in a 1-game playing for your playoff life, and if you lose that, you get one more bite at the apple. We've seen the Warriors fail in play-in scenarios. So just get in, be that 6th seed if you can actually improve it. That is the job for the remainder of the year, to not give anything back to the Timberwolves or the Clippers in your remaining 19 games. I think they're kind of built to do it, especially with the fact that Jonathan Kuminga will hopefully be returning on this homestand. And I hope he returns on this homestand, because Kuminga, has to play himself back into game shape. And I don't care how young and spry he is. It's going to take at least 10 days to get yourself back into, I've got my NBA lungs. He's going to need to learn how to come out and play with his team, which is nothing like the team that he left when he got injured. Jimmy Butler has so changed the chemistry and the makeup of this team. It's a whole different thing now. So Kuminga has to get his legs back, and he also has to figure out, the new rules of Warriors basketball. Now, the good thing is that Kuminga was dropping 24.3 points per game with 8 rebounds and 3.2 assists over the last 6 outings before he got hurt. He was playing really good basketball, some of the best of his young career. He was getting to the free throw line 10 times a night. You couple that with what Jimmy Butler is doing, that is a whole new way to play basketball that the Warriors never even imagined. What are these things called? Free throws. Geez, they're sure valuable in the fourth quarter. when you're already in the bonus and your opponent isn't. Warriors got some good vibes and mojo about them, and that is undeniable right now. It's whatever it is, it feels like it's happening. Now, don't give anything back to a on-the-come Pistons team, to a, even though they haven't had a good season at all, the Trailblazers are playing pretty well right now, and so are the Sacramento Kings. So 3 looks on the schedule beatable teams that might give you a little bit more of a headache than you want. Take care of business. Take care of business over these final 19 games. By the way, there have been a lot of, if you are a Warriors fan, you have been inundated with all kinds of, oh man, that's awesome stats about since Jimmy Butler joined the Warriors, ... Since Jimmy Butler joined the Warriors, ... Number 1 in free throws. Since Jimmy joined the Warriors, here's their record. Since Jimmy Butler joined the Warriors, here is their turnover ratio. Here's their free throw percent. Here's their defensive rating. All of it shooting the number 1 with a bullet. I mean, it's been fantastic, but I do officially have the since trading for Jimmy stat out there that is just amazing. Absolutely amazing. Jimmy Butler has shot the 5th most free throws on the Golden State Warriors this season. He's been with the team for 11 games. 5th most free throws. He's been here for 2 weeks. That's incredible. Number 1, good on you, Jimmy, for changing the temperature in the room at the free throw line. Number 2, shame on the rest of you guys for not figuring out how to get to the fucking free throw line ever. It just shows you that, like, Jimmy Butler, who does have a different game than Steph, but Jimmy Butler gets a better whistle in this league than Steph Curry, who, when we sit down to tell the history of the NBA, Jimmy Butler is a side note. He's a tangent. We'll talk about the coffee thing, Rachel Nichols rumors, blah, blah, blah. We'll talk about Jimmy Butler in ways that, he makes the book, but Steph Curry is one of the first, chapters of the book. Steph Curry is this in terms of historical significance to the NBA. Jimmy Butler is this in terms of historical significance to the NBA. With all due respect to Jimmy, he'd tell you the same thing. And the guy whose historical significance to this gets to the free throw line more than the guy who is this. It's not just playing style that doesn't get Steph to the free throw line. It is an agreed upon, that guy doesn't get a good whistle, that the entire league seems to have out for Steph. It's shocking that one of the greatest players of all time gets the worst whistle I've ever seen associated with a multiple-time MVP and champion and face of the league. It's crazy. Meanwhile, the Lakers, as we're doing this show, even though they're not playing right now, are shooting free throws. The Lakers are at the fucking free throw line every single time you look up. Oh, and you wonder why they've got one of the best records in all of basketball over the last few months. Are they better? Are they more interesting with Luka? Yes, they are at the free throw line more than anybody all the time. The Lakers, as a franchise, are the James Harden of free throws. I see an awful lot of regulars. As a matter of fact, it's a day of almost only regulars in here. I mean, Friday, people are getting out. It's nice out there, but it's good to see all of you in here. Like and subscribe, our good friends. I think most of you have. Did you hear what Draymond Green said about Karl Anthony Towns on his podcast? Draymond had to turn around and send well wishes to Karl Anthony Towns after the death of a family friend is the reason why he missed the Warriors game at Madison Square Garden, not what Draymond had shared on his podcast, or maybe there is an element of it, I don't know. But basically, Draymond said that he had heard that Karl Anthony Towns got Jimmy Butleritis and didn't want to be on the same court as Jimmy. it turns out Karl Anthony Towns lost a good friend, which has to suck. But again, like, why isn't he playing? It's not a family. Anyway, how people deal with grief is up to them. I am a bite your bottom lip, go to work guy, but that's just me. The story is that when Jimmy Butler was in Minnesota and was trying to work his way out of Minnesota, he decided to have a practice that fractured his relationship with existing Timberwolves almost instantly. Jimmy Butler and a bunch of Timberwolf G Leaguers and back of the bench guys took on the Timberwolves starters, and apparently Jimmy gave them work and talked more shit than has ever happened in an NBA practice. Apparently, Jimmy, not only with a collection of nobodies, won that practice, he talked about how everybody on the team he wasn't on was a massive pussy, will never be as good as him, and he did everything but insult their grandmothers on the way to just dunking on them. And it was a practice that made the Timberwolves sort of afraid of Jimmy going forward. And sure enough, Jimmy was then traded. And look, Jimmy wears out his welcome in a lot of places, in a lot of different ways. We haven't reached that portion of Jimmy with the Warriors and hopefully won't. But he can get real spicy. So Draymond floated that as the reason why he wasn't out there for the Warriors' win over the Knicks. And then I guess learned that there was a death in the circle of friends around Karl Anthony Towns and has since apologized. But Draymond, back to talking his shit on his podcast, means the Warriors are pointing to the right. The spicier Draymond's podcast gets, walks hand in hand with the Warriors' on-court success. So good news, the podcast is getting spicier and the Warriors are winning. So let's see, what else have we got going on? Two final stories and then today in history. The last, one of two here is the A's have given right fielder, outfielder Lawrence Butler a 7-year extension. He had a very productive second half of the year last year. The A's and Butler, again, agreeing to a 7-year, $65.5 million contract extension. The deal will keep him with the A's past their planned move to Las Vegas. And man, I saw more renderings of what that ballpark would look like coming out of Las Vegas just the other day. They have also recently, earlier in the offseason, resigned DH Brent Rooker to a 5-year, $60 million extension. And all I can tell you is that there is no fiery plane crash that is fiery enough for John Fisher in my mind. Now you're spending money. Now you're going to build your team. Now you're giving out smart contracts to keep your team assured of having a good future. Now you're out of... Fuck you, John Fisher. Seriously, man. Now that you're gone to Sacramento, you're going to spend money on your team? Screw you guys. I really mean it. That's just, I don't want to say screw the guys. The guys on the team didn't do anything wrong, but there is nothing that would make me happier than the A's having such a miserable year that nobody wants John Fisher attached to any element of anything anymore, and he's run out of this league. That fuck. I hate him. The last story before we get to today in history is the craziest snowboarder story of all time. We normally don't cover snowboarding here on the Palouse, but I got to share this one with you. It's on the front page of ESPN.com. Here's a story that nobody expected, right? The FBI has added former Canadian snowboarder, 43-year-old Ryan Wedding, to its 10 most wanted list, while the U.S. State Department is offering $10 million for his capture. Former Canadian snowboarder. I'll click on that story. I want to know more. Wedding went from shredding powder on the slopes at the Olympics to distributing powder cocaine on the streets of U.S. cities and in his native Canada, said Achille Davis, who is an assistant director of the FBI's Los Angeles field office. The alleged murders of his competitor are what put Wedding on the FBI's 10 most wanted list and labeled an incredibly dangerous man. ESPN.com says there's a $10 million reward for the information leading to the arrest of former Olympic snowboarder from Canada who is wanted for allegedly running a multinational drug trafficking network and orchestrating multiple murders to this drug ring. I thought snowboarders were like, just a bunch of crunchy, gnarly, weed guys. Not El Coco Loco. Wow. Okay, so Wedding was charged in June with murder and drug crimes. Those charges were augmented in September with an indictment that alleged that Wedding and others arranged the shipment of 60 tons of cocaine. 120 pounds of cocaine. 60 tons of cocaine using long-haul semi-trucks to move the drugs between Colombia, Mexico, Southern California, and Canada. Okay. This, to me, sounds like a movie. I mean, just Johnny Depp needs to be cast in the movie about this guy. Wow. All right. Moving big weight, murdering people to get it done, multinational drug ring run by a Canadian snowboarder. Didn't have that one. I mean, the whole snowboarder thing, I guess, should have been like our first clue. Lots of easy to make jokes right there. But man, okay, kid. part of me that's like pulling the whole Ron Burgundy. Like, I'm not even mad. I'm impressed. 60 tons of cocaine? Dude, this guy's shredding slopes like Pablo Escobar. Unbelievable. I'm guessing this is doing some with these gas prices. Smiley Dan, yeah, using those semi-hulls to move the deal. The Damon, economy's tough out there. People do need second jobs. You are right. Leslie saying that's generational blow for your grandchildren. Come on over. French connection. Michelle, maybe it's like the Ottawa connection. Wow. El Chapo. Seriously, legends. I mean, that's you're right, Christopher. That's a lot of nose candy. Doc Holliday. Damon, it's Point Break, but with snowboarding. Kind of nuts. Do you think he did a line off a Red Bull sticker? Like, remember when the whole tomato can guy, that redheader, whatever his name was like the most controversial snowboarder of all time because what? He tried to get popular and he got popular and what? He pinched a few asses and got called. Didn't they try to Me Too that guy? Shaun White, I think was his name. By the way, what is it with snowboarders and snow and white? Maybe they're all cocaine dealers. Shaun White? Come on. By the way, speaking of guys named White, moving big drugs, that brings us to today in history. And here's how we're wrapping up today's show. Once again, let me tell you, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Make sure that you are ordering lunch today from my man Ike right here. He's got a delicious sandwich just waiting for you. Go ahead and get it. And oh, by the way, get yourself to the Dubliner and West portal for the best Guinness in the city, Mr. Pink. Yeah, this guy's moving some serious weight here. You can take the snowboarder out of the snow, but you can't take the snow away from the snowboarder. or you'll end up in a ditch. Maybe it's that. What a transition. Well, you haven't even heard where this transition goes. Thank you, Christopher. From a guy named White moving snowboards, from a snowboarder moving white powder to Walter White himself. Today in history. Happy birthday, Bryan Cranston. Breaking Bad star turned 69 years old today, born in 1956. Today's the day we get the one who knocks. Skyler, I am the one who knocks. That is one of the greatest monologues and one of the greatest TV series of all time. It's so good. It's so good. Again, if you haven't done Breaking Bad because you think you've heard everything about it and you know, do Breaking Bad. It's really good. It's really good. Happy birthday to Bryan Cranston, who goes from Malcolm in the Middle to one of the greatest characters of all time. Eisenberg. Today in 1897, we got cornflakes. Maybe this is why people in mental hospitals are called flaky, because Dr. John Kellogg served his patients the world's first cornflakes at a mental hospital in Battle Creek, Michigan. I guess that's a really nice test group. So I've invented something. Let's have crazy people eat it. If they like it, maybe we're onto something. Dr. John Kellogg invented the cornflake and served them at a mental hospital in Battle Creek, Michigan today in 1897. Okay. Today in 1933, every single family game night that you've ever had involved Monopoly turned into one of the biggest arguments on game night your family ever had. And we can thank today Charles Darrow, who invented the board game Monopoly today and trademarked it in Atlantic City. If you're wondering why all these streets run through Atlantic, Monopoly comes from Atlantic City. That's why all of those streets are named what they are named around that Monopoly board. And again, I feel like Monopoly it's a great game for many reasons. It's also a terrible game for many reasons. It's the first time I remember like me and my grandmother ever arguing over anything because we were playing Monopoly, and one-on-one Monopoly can get freaking ruthless. I mean, how many families have flipped over Monopoly boards rather than finish the game? Almost all of them. Has anybody ever legitimately finished a game of Monopoly, or do you reach the point where everyone's like, yeah, we're good. We can walk away now. We can determine how this is all going. You ready to just stop and do something else? I feel like that's the way every game of Monopoly has ever ended. Yeah, we're good. Yeah, Leslie. Happy birthday to Walter White, bitches. Again, I'm thrilled that we have snowboarders' cocaine stories on the day of his birthday. Erwin says, Settlers of Catan can break up relationships. Are you in a relationship if you're playing Settlers for Catan? Like, isn't that one of the all-time, we got a group of virgins sitting down playing something? I don't know. I'm not a Catan guy. But I feel like that is the, like it's Dungeons and Dragons adjacent. And if you'd like to see a circle of virgins sitting around each other, go to a Dungeons and Dragons game, right? DB, cold-blooded. I'm just calling it like I see it. Thank you. Here you go. Postman of Capitola. Never, ever finished a game of Monopoly. I don't think it's ever had. I don't think it's ever happened. I think everybody just walks away going, fucking, this is terrible. I got to do math here. Like paying your own mortgage is rough enough. Now I got to do interest rates on mortgage and I'm getting killed for this hotel stay. on freaking Baltic Avenue. Today in 1987, speaking of being powered by cocaine, Mike Tyson defeated James Bone Crusher Smith to unify the WBA and WBC titles. The Bone Crusher did not bone crush in that moment. Mike Tyson did. Mike Tyson, he was good at hitting people. Look it up. Speaking once again of cocaine, that brings us to 2011, where today in 2011, Charlie Sheen officially got fired from 2.5 Men. Funny story. And it makes sense. The timeline fits. So Charlie Sheen gets fired from 2.5 Men today in 2011. Right after that happened, Charlie Sheen went to spring training where he met and hung out with Giants closer Brian Wilson and liked Brian Wilson so much that he literally became Brian Wilson. And the whole Tiger's blood and the winning. And then Charlie would do the interviews with the porn stars, which he called his goddesses. Charlie Sheen became Brian Wilson. Because after being fired from 2.5 Men, he went to spring training and he hung out with Brian Wilson. And this is how Charlie Sheen adapted that really weird persona that he took on for a while. Plus, he's addicted to coke and porn stars. Again, I'm not passing judgment. I'm just sharing what happened. I remember being at a Las Vegas pool party. Where was it? I can't remember what pool party it was, but it was a nighttime thumping DJ pool party in Las Vegas because, again, Charlie Sheen gets fired right before the NCAA tournament. My friends and I were going to the Vegas to watch the NCAA tournament. And I remember, do you remember the song by a DJ called Barbara Streisand? The name of the DJ, I know this, is called Duck Sauce. Duck Sauce's biggest hit was Barbara Streisand, which was Barbara Streisand. You remember that song? Do you remember that song? So I am at that Vegas pool party. Charlie Sheen is in the news like never before, becoming like one of the people that, like, everybody wanted to party with Charlie Sheen in that moment, right? He's got cocaine and porn stars and not giving a fuck, and he's going to spring training games, and he's turned into Brian Wilson, and he's, winning in Tiger's blood and all this shit. He's going like Charlie Sheen was having a mental lapse in real time right in front of us on Entertainment Tonight. The DJ during Barbara and instead of Barbara Streisand, it went Charlie Sheen. And the place went nuts. The place went nuts. That club went from 10 to 15 in that moment. Like this, the minute that everyone was expecting to hear Barbara Streisand, they heard the Charlie Sheen. The place went fucking nuts. I think people got pushed into the pool. Like, it went crazy. It was one of the all-time I'm in a club and something that just made the club pop off happened moments of my young enough to be in a club in Las Vegas career. Yeah, Zothmus, he's like, they use that beat in commercials now. They do. I mean, back in the day, it was a big thing. Sky Collins is like, not familiar with the work of Duck Sauce. Again, I don't think there's a lot of work of Duck Sauce to be familiar with. But they had Barbara Streisand. And on the night it was changed to Charlie Sheen, I saw a frickin' club in Las Vegas go from the 45-mile-an-hour lane to the Autobahn. Everyone just went nuts. It was a lot of fun. Finally, last element of today in history that involves our history together. Today, in 2023, on March 7th, I was laid off from 95.7 The Game. No regrets, no regrets. I mean, on my part, they have to realize that they erred greatly, because not only did 95.7 The Game lay off Damon Bruce, but they laid off most of their audience that day too, and an awful lot of their credibility. Oh, what do you know? You can't get that all back. But because of that moment, you and I get to hang out together. Because of that moment, we're over here now kicking ass in a place where every single station is trying to figure out, how do we get on YouTube? I'm looking forward to all of our years together right here. And this is, Christopher, you nailed it. Happy Independence Day. But you telling me the time doesn't go fast? It sure does. Hand banana. Thank you, 95.7. Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree. I really do. Otis Bird, our radio historian. Dang, 2 years. 2 years happens fast, doesn't it? Oh, and just because Damon, Brie Olson, the porn star. Yeah, she was there. 40-year-old Trent, better than 90% of left tackles. We already got that from Jon Snow. Again, snow, a big theme on today's show. 2 years flew by. It sure did. Sporticus, you're right. Sometimes doors shut and it opens to better ones. Thanks to all of you, whether you be members, subscribers, the type of person who will lean over and hit that like button or not. Thank you to all of you. This is Damon in Vegas, pre-Jillian at the pool party. Yes, that was a pre-Jillian trip. That's for sure. Sky, thank you very much. Damon on Demand has been the best thing ever. Well, thank you very much. I am so honored that you have a demand to continue to see this show. We got Zolthmus saying, I feel like I was listening to D. Bruce on the radio in the Nations van. Yeah, like, what, you're driving around, you're rocking Nations? Were you delivering pies to people? Postman, the answer is not great. Not great. What is great is Ike's. Go get yourself a sandwich. Thanks to all of you for being a part of this. Everybody, have yourself a great weekend. An awesome weekend. Have yourself the kind of weekend that lets you know that you got to be right back here Monday morning, 9 a.m. for Wake Up with yours truly and Larry Krueger. Free agency is going to get underway, and what a week we're about to have. Like, subscribe, become a member, all those things. Thank you. And please do remember that sports don't build character. They reveal it. And like that, he's gone.